Hey, Joanna.
Hi, Mike.
So we're now looking at phase three of the negotiation process, which is called coming together. So let me share my screen. So the important thing here is that you've completed the opening stage. So you've set the scene, you've created a positive atmosphere, you've established your common ground. Then in phase two, moving apart, you've kind of intentionally created a gap between you and your counterpart because you want to promote open and active discussion and sharing. And you want to make sure that all of the issues and problems and areas of need are understood by both sides. So you've gone through this process of active listening, question asking, understanding their needs, their problems, and you've also been willing to, lay your cards on the table. At a certain point, you're going to realize that you're able to move into the third stage. And the third stage is where the proposals start coming in. And when making proposals, you want to use the language of negotiation.
What is the language of negotiation?
That's a great question. So this is the single most important piece of language in the whole negotiation course, and it's highlighted in the bottom right here. So if you do this for us, then we can do that for you. So even more simple, if you, then we. So if you give us a 10% reduction on cost price, then we can guarantee 3-day delivery terms. Or if you can, advertise us on your website, then we will provide you with exclusive staff benefits, something like that. So why is this so important? Well, firstly, as you can hear, it's the language of reciprocation, i.e., there's a mutually beneficial, both sides are doing something for one another. And you should never give something away in a negotiation without asking for something in return. That is absolutely important. So always if you, then we. Now, one additional point is you should never switch the order. So you should not say, if I do this for you, then will you do that for me? That is much weaker language because you're essentially asking them, you're asking, so if I do this for you, will you do that for me? It's kind of asking them, it's weaker language. Whereas if you say, if you do this, then we will do this in return. That's a much stronger statement proposal than the other way around. So make sure that you use it in that order. If you, then we.
It's a statement versus question. Yeah.
Exactly.
Always a statement wins. Um, well, except in coaching, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see some numbers on the left side. We have number one issue, number two problem, number three hot topic, and so on. What are these about?
hmm Yeah. So we're talking about this section over here. So let me just highlight it.
Mhm.
Um, this is very, very important. What often happens is when you have a negotiation, you'll talk about the first issue, which will, let's say, be price. You'll talk about price and you will agree on price. Then you'll move to the next issue, which will be delivery times. And you'll agree on delivery times. Then you'll move on to the next issue and you'll agree on that. And you'll kind of go one by one by one. So you'll make miniature agreements as per topic. Now, that is not what we advise doing. And the reason for that is because it doesn't give you any flexibility. Let's say you've gone through that process and then later on there's something you need, but you have nothing left to negotiate with because you've already agreed on the price, the delivery times, and everything else. You need something. It's not such a priority for them. You've put yourself in a very, very difficult situation. And it's almost impossible to change something that has already been agreed. That the response that you would have if they tried to do that would be no, that's already agreed. That is put to bed. That has been decided. We're on to something else now. You wouldn't allow it, and they won't allow it either. So what you'll see is in this diagram, you've got issue one, proposal A, problem two, solution B, etc., etc. But the arrows are not one goes with A, two goes with B, three goes with C. The arrows are all over the place. And that's absolutely how it should be. In the second phase, you want to put your cards on the table. This is my first issue. This is my second idea. This is my third problem area, etc., etc. The other side does the same thing. So if you imagine that there's, let's say, six things that you put on the table, six things that they put on the table. Now, when you move into the third stage, it's a matter of matching them up, but not 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. You can combine them. You can go one matches with six. If you do this for us, then we can do that for you, etc., etc. So, so important to follow this more open process.
Great. Okay. Let me ask you about win-win. So what if in a negotiation, of course we all want a win-win situation, yeah?
Mhm.
But sometimes you cannot get a win-win. What do you do then?
That's a really interesting question. Let me just highlight the win-win. So, as you said, but I would maybe say that a lot of people don't think that they don't see a win-win as the goal of the negotiation. Many people see a negotiation as the win-lose goal. I win, you lose, and that's how they imagine the whole thing. Win-win is absolutely about this mutual collaboration, about an ongoing strategic partnership. It's a really interesting question because you actually don't want the other side to lose. You do not want them to walk away thinking they were taking advantage of, thinking that you got the lion's share of the benefits, because that does not do anything for a long-term relationship. And that's what you're looking to create and maintain with these negotiations. So I would absolutely say that if you feel like you have taken advantage of them, and if you feel as though they maybe will not be happy with this negotiation agreement, then you should actually actively take steps to maybe enhance it for them. Bringing us back to the preparation and the hit list, what were these assumptions that you were making about their have to haves, their intent to haves, and their tradables? It could be entirely up to you to open a new area where you think they could get more value from the agreement to maybe balance the scales a little bit. That would actually be much better than signing a contract with someone knowing that in a year's time they're not going to renew it because you benefited way more than they did.
Right. Yeah. How about the other clouds? So strong lead, creativity,
Mhm.
um, common ground, referring back to it on all issues.
Yeah.
What about
Let,
these?
Absolutely. Let me move through a couple of these. So, I've already mentioned in other videos that you want to establish that common ground at the beginning. That is the mutual kind of shared goal that you're looking to achieve together. If it's written somewhere and if it's referenced regularly, the atmosphere is better, the collaboration is better. And when you're making an agreement, when you're making a proposal, the common ground should absolutely be at the front of your mind. If the common ground is, let's say, to provide your shared customers with the best level of service and customer experience, then how does this proposal that I'm making lead to that common ground? How does this proposal benefit the customer in that way? And if you can't justify that, then it's an interesting question as to whether this proposal is actually correct for this negotiation, or whether you are being a little bit more win-lose in this particular instance. That when you use the common ground to underline and underpin all of your proposals, then that's exactly what you're aiming to do to get to that shared goal together. Creativity, again, we spoke about the hit list. This is where, thinking out of the box, what areas maybe they haven't even considered that you could use to add value for yourself or for both parties in a negotiation. So as creative as possible, there's no areas here that you shouldn't look into. So definitely worth considering. And a strong lead, yeah. So we'll speak about the roles in a negotiation in a different video, but when you're the chairperson, you want to be moving this process forward. You want to be taking them into the proposal. So to make sure that proposals are being made, by both sides. Counter proposals are coming to make sure that you reach a mutually beneficial agreement. So being able to lead and being able to make proposals in a strong way is very, very useful.
What about changing negotiation style to move forward?
Yeah, good question. So this is referring again to the idea of switching into proposals. As we saw in phase two, no proposals yet in the second phase. So when you've moved apart, you're putting issues on the table. We do not want to see proposals coming at that point because you'll either give away too much or you'll force them to say no, both of which are not good for you or for them really. So only when you get to the point where you've completed the second stage, you're sure that all of the key topics have been discussed, you change your negotiation style and you move into these proposals. Speaking of proposals, then if I highlight down the bottom left, you'll see this process here: propose trade, propose break, trade break, propose trade. So breaks are so important in negotiation. It's so easy to get lost. It's so easy to kind of miss the key areas or misunderstand something that's been agreed or not agreed. So when you follow this process, make a proposal, they'll offer to trade something, maybe then take a break so that both sides, both parties can consider the offer, come back together, another trade proposal, maybe another break as well. That's absolutely fine. And it really, really benefits both sides to have time to think about these proposals before committing to them.
Okay, looking for options and using your tradables. I think I kind of know what this means. Always have in mind tradables when maybe you're getting a no or you're getting a negative response to one of your requests. Then you have to use your tradables. Am I getting close to what you wanted to say here, Mike?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, looking for options. So again, it's about creativity and it's about different ways of giving people what they want. So your tradables, again, you've prepared them as part of your hit list. That's the T. You've got a list of them, and you've also got a list of what you think their tradables are. In the second phase, you've also explored that in a bit more depth. You've asked questions to understand their bottom lines, etc. So look for options and use your tradables. This is just about bringing the tradables in and starting to make those if you then we proposals in order to reach that agreement. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
A part of that is understanding the negotiation ranges per issue. As I mentioned, what is their bottom line? What figure will they not go below? What percentage is their highest they could possibly offer, etc. So, how do you do that? You ask questions. You understand areas of where they can be flexible and areas where they cannot be flexible.
Mm-hmm. And coming back together, is that related to the win-win or not?
It's absolutely related to the win-win. Yeah. So when we talk about the negotiation process itself, if you remember, it's the shape of an arrow. So it starts off it's like this, then you move away from each other in the second phase, and then in the third phase, you're coming back together. And by the end of the fourth phase, you've actually met at the point at the end of the arrow. So the third phase, the coming together, is really where you're working on bringing the two parties back together again after having kind of shifted them apart. So yeah, coming back together is exactly what you want to be doing in phase three.